Welcome to the Bookshelf Odyssey podcast. In this podcast, we talk about books, interview authors, and we discuss their journey to becoming published. Each one has a different but amazing story. My hope is to encourage people to keep reading good books and to help authors find their audience and inspire everyone in their journey, whatever that might be. Welcome to the Bookshelf Odyssey podcast. Welcome back to the Bookshelf Odyssey podcast. My name is Art, and I have a special guest on the show today, author Amey Zeigler, and she has just written a new book called The Christmas Mug, and it's book 2 in the Helping of Hope series. It's a sequel to The Casserole Dish. It follows Lisa Bennigan and her life-changing experiences, and the book 2 follows up after book 1, and we get a holiday tale to boot. So, Amey, welcome to the Bookshelf Odyssey podcast.
Oh, thanks, Art. Thanks for inviting me on here and allowing me to spend an hour with you and chat.
Gotta confess, I'm not a major romance reader, but
I'll convert you.
Okay, yeah. I always had a friend who'd say, if I say I'm not something, he says, well, there's time to repent, you know?
Yes. Well, it's funny. Well, you put Christmas in it, and it's a Christmas story too, right? But it's funny because one of the brandings that I use, it's kind of funny. I tell people, I was like, I write romance for people who don't read or don't like romance because my romance is so sensible. It's realistic, but not in a bad way. Like there's still unrealistic things that happen. The things aren't eye-rollingly terrible in my book. Not that all romance is, but there's no abuse, no weird stuff. You know, it's the stuff that even people who don't like romance like my books.
And I should say, it's not that I don't like romance. I mean, some of my favorite movies are romantic comedies. So I'm a big mushball, you know. But
yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if it's just a straight like romance in a book. You know, I like the addition of Christmas, or if it's present in, you know, like a mystery novel or something. I really enjoy that. But and it could be I've just been reading the wrong romances too.
Probably. So to me, my romances, there's always something else going on with it. Like in the first one, it was a romance, but it's also a story about transformation. Like she had to fix up a house and a neighborhood and her heart. Like it wasn't just the romance, because I just feel like life is so full of lots of different things that to focus just on romance, even in the romance genre, is not full enough. I want lots of things going on in my books. So some people say too many things are going on in my books, but that's okay. I don't listen to the critics.
Well, see, to me, that gives it some meat. If you have a lot of things going on, you know, well, and I know definitely my problem is I keep reading these like romantic comedy books that people recommend, but then you get into it and it's kind of trashy, and I'm not, you know, that's not my cup of tea. So
all mine are really clean.
Right.
Even the Swiss Mishap is fade to black, because my husband always teases me. He's like, oh yeah, they totally. And I was like, no, they didn't. And she's like, yeah. And I was like, well, if they did, they didn't tell me. So I can write it on the page. So nothing is on the page. I keep them really clean. Most of my most recent, there's not even any potty words in them. Sure. My mysteries, just because they're a little bit grittier, are a little bit, they're a little bit sexier and a little bit, they have a couple more potty words, like just a couple of H's and D's, but nothing outside of the biblical swear words. I just try to keep it clean.
This sounds great, honestly. So I was excited to have you on here to talk about this and everything. But before we get too much farther, I would love to find out about what kind of a reader you are. Have you been reading anything lately that you could recommend?
Gosh, like that is, I read a lot. Because I think, like, as a writer, if you're not reading at least twice as much as you're writing, then it's really hard to have the fuel to like produce, right? Like words to writers are like food to an athlete, right? If an athlete wasn't carbing up, they wouldn't be able to run these marathons. And I feel like it's the same way with writers. We need to read to fuel our imagination. So funnily enough, I actually want to shift into writing YA fantasy. So I've been reading a lot of YA fantasy. I finished the Inheritance Games trilogy, and I haven't read the new book. It's on my list. The Brothers Grimm, I think, is on my list too. And I'm trying to remember the last book that I read, which was a YA fantasy too. I mostly read it for the same reasons I write clean. They're mostly clean. They have fun action adventure, interesting things going on in these books. There's puzzles, there's mysteries, there's, different settings. And so I read a lot of YA fantasy. Dang, I should look at my Goodreads and see what I just finished. And then I also read, okay, so here's something else. It's so funny because people ask me as a romance writer, they're like, who's your favorite writer? And I'm like, Brandon Sanderson. And everyone's like, what? He writes epic fantasy. And I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
But he has really great characters. Yes, he has world buildings. Yes, he has magic system. But his characters have so much depth to them that I read Brandon as a wellspring of knowledge and like just how to do the craft. I think he's just a really talented author. I think no matter what your genre is, I would highly recommend Brandon Sanderson. So he just had a book come out last Tuesday, and my son and I actually went to Salt Lake to go to Dragonsteel and stayed outside up in the morning to go get a low numbered book. I mean, we're crazy, right? That's just so crazy. Oh, well, you only live once, right?
That's right. That's right. Well, you're making memories too. Yeah.
Yeah. With my son, he's a big fan, huge fan. So I was like, we're doing this because we can only do this at the conference or the convention. So we're going to do it. We're going to do it.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, and I found he has a lot of YouTube videos out teaching about writing and different things.
Yes, absolutely. So when I first started writing, my husband was a grad student and we were really, really poor. And so all the resources that I had, I couldn't fly and go to conferences, and I couldn't buy books, and I couldn't buy, all these things. And so I started out with books in my library, and then I stumbled upon Brandon's English class, and it's not even on his channel. Like the original ones are like BYU English 324 or something like that. And the audio was really bad. I would sit there at my computer and just strain to listen. And I have notebooks of notes and stuff. And then I found out that his mentor, Dave Farland, actually was still teaching these classes that he had taught Brandon. And so I signed up for one of those. I mean, this is just like a couple of years ago because I've always wanted to write fantasy. And Dave was the first one that told me, not me specifically, but he's the one that believed in that anybody could write fantasy. And that I could write fantasy. And so I wrote my first YA fantasy. I'm still working on it because it's going to be like this big epic, like right now it's 110,000 words. I think I'm going to split it in half and make it a duology because it's just so big and there's so much I want to tell. But yeah, it was Brandon's mentor, Dave, who, that I took classes from eventually. But yeah, I took Brandon. He has a bunch of stuff. He has his, he has a writing podcast too, Writing Excuses. I mean, he loves to give back. He teaches a class at BYU that my daughter took. And I actually sat in on the class and like totally eavesdropped. And I was like, oh, this is good stuff. So yeah, he loves to give back to the writing community. He's very generous with his time.
Yeah.
I just think is a wonderful human being.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He always seemed like it. So I'm glad to hear that he is. That's your impression too. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've read a couple of his books. I haven't read a ton, but he's definitely one I keep an eye on when I see a book that kind of sounds interesting. I'll pick it up from him.
So read Tress of the Emerald Sea. That was my favorite out of his secret projects. Then after that was probably Yumi and the Painter. So those two out of those secret projects were definitely my favorite. And then I haven't read the last one, the red one. Sorry, I can't even remember off the top of my head. But we all fight over his books at our house. So when they come out, we're all like grabbing the book. If somebody puts it down, somebody snatches it up. Like it's blood sport around here. Reading is dangerous.
It is. So you're into extreme reading, is that it?
No.
It's like Hunger Games or something there,
Yes, my house anyway.
Right. That's awesome. Now, were you always an avid reader, or is that?
I was, yeah. I think a lot of writers start out as avid readers, and I think that's where I get my natural knack for storytelling, is just because, like, when I was a kid, we lived in Alaska, and there just wasn't a lot to do in the winter. Like, unless you liked winter sports, which I did not, I would just burrow into the couch and stay up late reading, and mostly Nancy Drew. But But our library system was amazing up there. The Lusac Library had just an amazing collection of books. And our school library, of course, was just filled with books. And so I just always had books, and I just read that and Calvin and Hobbes growing up. I feel like that's kind of the formative stuff that formed my personality as a kid.
Calvin and Hobbes is essential reading for anyone.
I agree.
Even it was less than 10 years ago, I got the complete collection of Calvin and Hobbes for Christmas, and I'm like, oh, this is the best. Yeah.
And hours just getting lost in little Calvin's world. So.
Yep. And, just to get completely off topic, I mean, that's a comic strip that, is done, but it has, I think, aged very well. Yes. Like, it still is so good and clever and funny. Yeah.
And now that I have kids, I'm like, oh yeah, Calvin. Oh man, it's even funnier. Like, I feel like it's funnier now that I have kids. So it's a treat.
Exactly. Yeah. My boys have tried to go out and build a snowman house of horrors or something,
Right. Oh yeah. I love it. All of it. Mm-hmm.
Well, tell us a little bit about your new book here, the Christmas Mug. What's it about, and what can we expect in it?
All right. So the Christmas Mug is a sequel to my first book, The Casserole Dish. And the casserole dish was basically the 1 second phrase for that one is one broken heart, one broken house, one broken neighborhood, and one casserole dish to fix them all. And so basically it's a woman who moves into a neighborhood. She's enveloped by gossip. She wants to try to make things better. And so she starts passing around this casserole dish to kind of like connect people together. And as the casserole dish gets passed around, you learn the backstories of some of these neighbors that you think are just horrible at the beginning. But then you start to see, oh my gosh, there's a reason why they're acting this way. And it's actually a comedy, which is kind of funny. I don't know. It's funny, but it's kind of like, haha, funny, not haha, funny. But anyway. And so I just kind of took that idea, and the Christmas Mug is, for me and a lot of women, I feel like, and maybe just a lot of people in general, I don't know, I can't speak for anybody else, but Christmas can be really difficult because I feel like the lion's share of all the tasks of buying the gifts, meal preparation, decoration, all the things that the kids do, at school, like the class parties, the gifts, the little doodads, the costumes that they have to bring for their, party, that largely falls on parents. And I feel like, and in my family, it definitely fell on me. And so sometimes I would get really exasperated around Christmas, and I just almost didn't feel very Christmassy because I got caught up in the list of to-dos, right? All of these things. And so I kind of took that idea and said, what would help make somebody get back into the Christmas spirit? And so I liked the idea from the casserole dish where they passed around this casserole dish, and this time it's a Christmas mug. And so one of the neighbors in the book suggests that they pass around this mug, and it has a "you've been mugged" on the mug, right? Like it's a little play on words. I think I'm so clever sometimes. I'm all like, I'm so clever. But they pass around this mug, and as they pass it around, people start getting into the spirit of Christmas, and they start doing Secret Santa gifts for each other. Like some of the people don't have wreaths on their door. And so one of the girls who had a bunch of extra wreaths that she was just going to throw them away. So she takes them and she like wreath attacks her neighbor's door, like anonymously. Like she just takes one of those little command strips and sticks it on their door and leaves a wreath and runs away chuckling to herself. Because for me, when I do service, and it doesn't always have to be in secret, but when I do service, that helps me to feel that spirit of joy. It helps me to remember, this is a time of giving, of self-sacrifice, of loving other people. I'm a religious person, so I feel like the spirit of Christmas is also the spirit of Christ. I feel like when we do these acts of service, we draw closer together as a community, and we have this bond of, we're all walking this human path together. And so that's what this story is trying to embody. It's trying to help Lisa, who's lost the spirit of Christmas in this, a bazillion, list of things to do, and help this community kind come back together, because there's also porch pirates, because I told you I can't make an easy book. Like there's porch pirates in there, and so everyone's accusing each other of porch pirates, and so piracy, and so there's like this little edge to it, and so she wants to bring back that Christmas joy, and so they start passing around this Christmas mug, and to bring back the spirit of Christmas. And of course there's other delightful little secret Santa projects in there that just kind of warm your soul. It's like hot chocolate for your soul is how I would describe this book. It's just a fun, clean, wholesome, feel good read.
That sounds like a book I would enjoy. I haven't had a chance to read it yet. Sorry, that sounds like an insult. I didn't mean, but
I would enjoy.
I would, yeah. No. What I'm trying to say here, I have a foot and mouth disease. I open mouth, stick in foot, but
okay, I go all the way up. It's fine.
Yeah. There's a book right here behind me that is one of my favorites. It's called Christmas by the Book, and it's the story of a bookstore that is facing closure. It's like a small local bookstore in England, and they're just going bankrupt. They can't stay open, and so it's kind of a last hurrah. They have a contest where they send out 6 Christmas books to random people in their community, and so they pick 6 different Christmas books, like A Christmas Carol, a couple others, like The Greatest Gift, which is the movie. Wow, my brain's gone. It's a Wonderful Life. There we go.
Yes.
Is based on that. Yeah, and and so they go out to these people, and then you follow these people's points of view and how that book changes their life or helps them through a struggle or difficulty. And I was just getting that same sense and vibe from your story. And I love that as a storytelling device. I think it's really fun.
So I love, and that's what I did with the casserole dish, is that, like you follow the casserole dish and it tells their story and helps you understand. And it helped change whatever struggle they were going through. And it helped, see that in a different light, to feel that love and things like that. And so I just took that and translated that into Christmas, because I think Christmas is a magical time. Like if there was ever a time that you could have magical crockery, Christmas would be it, right? And so I kind of feel like it really played in with the themes that I was going with already with the casserole dish. And it's very similar to the Christmas books, or whatever that is.
Christmas by the Book. Yeah.
By the Book. Absolutely. Very similar vein.
Yeah. I'm a huge Christmas nerd. Okay. So, I mean, I do a Christmas podcast, as a lot of people know, and we have a year-round Christmas book club where we'll read, a cozy mystery set at Christmas or something Christmas related throughout the year. So that was our choice for November. And so in one of the videos I posted discussing it, I just said, I don't know if this book would work if it wasn't Christmas, set at Christmas, because you expect that magic to happen. And, there's a happy ending for everyone, minor spoilers, I guess, but it's a Christmas book. You're going to expect it.
Come on. Even A Christmas Carol has a happy ending, and that was pretty, yeah. Oh, I loved it.
That's what I love about stories set at Christmas. You get the magic happens sometimes, and it's like, that's fine. It's Christmas. It's supposed to do that.
Yeah, there is something magical about Christmas time. I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, are you planning to write more in this series, or is it just a duology?
Well, I have one more book planned, just because, like, after I sent this out to my beta readers, they were like, we want more, we want more, we want more. And I was like, oh, okay. So I think the next one is going to be around Valentine's Day, and it's going to be called The Cookie Platter. And I always include recipes in there, but something that we do, well, there was a philosophy that when my mom was feeling sorry for herself one day, and my grandpa said, well, whenever you're feeling sorry for yourself, you should bake something for somebody else. And my mom really took that to heart. And we always had cake mixes and chocolate chips at our house. And so we were allowed free reign in our kitchen to be able to, like, bake for other people. And we often did. Like, running cookies to our neighbor's house was like just something we did. Running fresh bread. Like, if I made bread, it made 2 loaves, I would take one to the neighbors. And I don't know, there's just something about, it's something very healing, and something very, like, wholesome about receiving just like a plate of cookies or like a Christmas mug or a casserole dish, food or something that, I don't know, that just makes me feel warm and squishy. And so, yeah, so I do plan on doing at least one more. And then I'm putting all the recipes, because there's recipes in the back of each of the books. I'm putting all of those recipes into one singular book so that you don't have to go flipping through, 3 different books for my recipes. And I'm going to put those in a thing, and I'm going to sell those on my website as a bundle so that people can get those easily. And I'm super excited for that. So coming to the near future, hopefully soon. So the cookie platter is kind of next. So.
I'm a sucker for cookies. Those those are my favorite. Yeah.
In fact, we did a family cookbook, and everybody like the main dishes is like this big, like just a couple of pages, and then side dishes maybe a little bit bigger, and then we get to the cookie recipe, and everybody submitted like 20 cookie recipes in my family. We should just call this the family cookie cookbook.
There you go. But well, then you'll have plenty of I guess recipes here for that upcoming book then.
Yes. Oh, I have tons. And even though I put like cookies in, I've definitely put some in the Christmas, because it's not Christmas without cookies. Definitely have some in the Christmas. Oh, I have plenty to share with the cookie platter, plus some other Valentine's Day recipes that I want to share. So things that I love.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's look at your journey to becoming a writer. How did you first get started as a writer?
Well, so this is actually kind of a crazy and long story, and I hope you don't mind that I love to talk, but
go for it. I love to listen. So.
Okay. That's a great quality in a podcaster. It really is. Sorry. I like to talk. Which it comes out in my words, right? I talk, and I just talk on paper now. So back when I was little, I mentioned before that I was a reader, and I think a lot of writers love being in the world, and then your natural extension is, I want to do that for somebody else. I want other people to laugh, to cry, to feel something, to be scared, to walk into another world, to escape, right? And so I always wanted to be a writer. And I took some writing classes in college. I actually got a C in my creative writing class, let it be known. Yeah. He was a tough teacher too, but I think out of all those people, I think he was surprised that I was the one that go on to be the published author. But true story. But I struggled with postpartum depression after my kids. Like, I just had a really hard time bouncing back, and people were like, "Oh, so you should be bouncing back. Life is back to normal." And I'm just like, "No, it's not." And I remember after my second son was born, and I was just feeling like I was dying inside. It's really hard to describe what postpartum depression feels like. It's like a midlife crisis, menopause, and baby stuff all wrapped into one. It's terrible. And the best way I can describe it is I felt like I was dying inside. And I told my husband, I was like, I've always wanted to write. Like, I always wanted to be a writer. And I just feel like that is escaping from me. I just had my second child. I felt like my life was over. A lot of that is just the depression talking. And he's like, well, sit down and write. And I was like, you mean right now? And he's like, yeah, sit down and write me a scene. Write me a scene of something that you've been thinking about. And so I did. I sat on this, I think it's called rattan. It's those woven chairs, but man, are they uncomfortable. And I just had I had a Frankenstein computer. My husband was really poor. He was a grad student, and we were only making like $19,000 a year. I know that's crazy to think about. And I had this old Frankenstein computer that my husband had put together with old parts that he had scavenged. And I sat down and opened a Google Doc, and I wrote a scene, and I sent it to my husband, and he was like, "This is good. Keep going." Now, it was not, in fact, good. It was crap. Like, come on. But he didn't correct me. He didn't try to give me advice. He just said, keep going.
Yeah.
And I think that is so vital. It's something I still tell people who are beginning. I was like, this is good. Keep going. Keep going. I didn't say you're not there yet. I just said, keep going. Because we all need encouragement, especially when we're first trying out. I had a good sense of story, but I needed some skills in my thing. And so like I said, I took those Brandon Sanderson classes, listening and trying to hear that through the bad audio. I checked out books from the library. And it wasn't until my husband graduated and we got a job, and I had my first book, and I knew I was close. I had sent it off to a couple of agents, and I was getting full requests for this book. So I knew I was close. Like, I was like, oh, I'm close. But I just didn't know what to do with this, because first of all, I was writing like I said, I write romance with 1,000 other things going on, and there's really no genre for that other than action, adventure, romantic comedies, which is what I write.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to a conference and they were like, honey, you don't need an agent. You can just submit to a small press. And I was like, a small press? I'd never heard of this. So I went through and I looked for a small press that was looking for something that I was writing. And I found one and I submitted it and they accepted it. Mm. I was over the moon. I couldn't believe it. I was going to be a published author. And so I was really excited. I got the book and I sent it out. Everybody got a copy of my first book, and I sent it to somebody that I love really dearly. And this person had been struggling mentally. I think they had a mental break is probably how I would describe it. And so their laugh was not natural. Their laugh was like this. And no matter what we tried to do to help this person, it just didn't seem like they were breaking through this mental barrier where they couldn't get through this part of their life. Mm-hmm. And so I sent her a copy of this book, and I was really nervous because this person is really prim and proper. And my first book was a little on the PG-13 side. And so I was nervous that she was going to call and be like, Amey, you need to repent. And so I was all like, oh no. So she calls, and seriously, she is laughing so hard that she can't even get out the words. She is laughing like a real laugh, and she is laughing, and she's like, ha, 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 ha. And I was like, what is going on? And she's just laughing so hard. And she's like, mm-hmm. Amey, this is the funniest part. Hold on, you got to read this. And I was like, well, I've read every part of my book 1,000 times, but okay, why don't you read it to me? Because I have no idea what you're talking about. And so she gets on there and she's like, she stood strong in her fat suit. And I was like, that was the laugh that made her laugh. But the laughter was healing. Yeah. It was healing for her, right?
Yeah.
Healing. Just like when I had postpartum depression, writing was very healing for me. And so it was so wonderful to be on this side of the equation where my writing was touching people's hearts, and they were getting healed out of the things that I was writing. And so after we got off the phone with this particular friend, my husband looked at me and he said, I don't care what it costs. I don't care what it takes. You have a gift and you need to share it with people, and you need to keep writing. Mm. And so I was like, oh, okay. And so I do. And I try to write things that make people laugh, make people cry, make people feel something, change a little bit. But mostly they're action, adventure, romantic comedies. That means that they're kind of crazy and it's hard to put them in a genre.
So what was your first book called?
So it was called Baker's Dozen, and it was a mystery because I grew up on Nancy Drew. And so I was like, I was going to write this mystery. And I just poured everything into it, everything that I had been thinking about for years. I just dumped into this book. So it's a wild ride. A lot of people are like, wow, this is a little over the top. And it is a little over the top, but it is so fun to read. And it's a little sexier than some of my other sweet romance. It's definitely got some innuendo in there, and
sure.
Definitely a little bit more, there is some violence because it's the mafia and stuff. So it's not particularly, I wouldn't call it clean. I just call it steamy clean, which means that it's mostly clean. Mm-hmm. There's only a couple of H's and D's, and then, no intimacy on page. I will never do that. But it's a wild ride and it's super fun. And then I wrote the second book to that one. And so now I need to write the third book because that's supposed to be a series and stuff. So I'll get to it. It's just those books take a lot out of me to write because they're just so wild. They're so crazy. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of twists and turns.
Sounds like you just throw everything in there.
I did because I was like, this is my one chance to get published. I'm just gonna throw it all in. And it's got some amazing twists and turns. People who are like, wow, go read the reviews for that one. It's actually a really fun read.
Great. Partly I do this so I can just add to my TBR list. And so I've got a couple more here now I'm gonna have to add on. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's amazing. And kudos to your husband, for encouraging you in that. I just, speaking as a husband, I love it when I hear stories of the guys. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to say this, but encouraging their wives, letting them pursue their dreams and things. I also am religious, and sometimes in a religious culture you can get a lot of suppression and things that
Mm-hmm.
make me uncomfortable. But so I guess I'm a
Absolutely.
little more sensitive to that, and I kind of grew up in that sort of a background, and but I love it to see, that this isn't just, we're not here for my dreams. It's a team
Right.
effort. Yeah.
It's an effort. I couldn't do it. Like my first book was actually dedicated to him because I could not do what I do without him.
Mm,
He's really good with story. And so he is my first reader. Like nobody reads it until he reads it. And he gives me so much valuable story insight. I actually don't hire a developmental editor, which for most people I would say, don't do that. That's crazy. But he has such a keen sense of story that if I start going off the rails, he's like, no, 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 no. This is the story you need to go. This is the story you need to tell. It's this way. And that is invaluable. Like, and he allows me to do crazy things. Like I go to conferences, I teach classes, I do I'm doing things like this right now.
hmm
He just really, he's like, yeah, when I retire, let's write books together, right?
hmm
He thinks that this is so wonderful. And I want, my goal someday is to retire him from his job so that we can write books together, because I think that would be super fun. So maybe someday maybe with my YA fantasy series, it'll just take off like crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Ever the
awesome.
optimist.
Now, you mentioned a development editor. I don't know what that is. I haven't heard that term before.
Okay, so usually there are several different types of editors that you want to do. So I started out as traditional, and so all of my editors were also developmental editors, but they actually never commented on my story, which is amazing. Like maybe they were like, hey, you might want to add a scene here, something there, but no major rewrites or anything, which surprised me. I was like, whoa. But because Rob was doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and a lot of my beta readers do the heavy lifting. So a developmental editor will help you develop ideas, stories. So like if you have something and you're like, I'm not quite sure how to get from point A to point B, a developmental editor will suggest like, hey, it would be really cool is if you did this and this, and maybe you could, and they kind of shape the story with you.
hmm
So I don't have a developmental editor as an indie author. I have my beta readers. My mom actually reads a lot of my stories and gives me feedback. I have a lot of friends that are avid readers that just give me feedback. And then my husband, of course, is the first one. And then, of
hmm
course, every author has to have like line edits and proofreaders and all of those things. So I have, a team of people going through, and you know what? Those pesky little typos still sneak through. Like I opened up the print book and there's probably about 2 typos in there that are super like annoying. I'm like, how dare you? So the next printing will be better.
Yeah. Okay. That's neat. Yeah. It makes sense with the name, and I thought that's what it was, but I learned something new, I guess. So
I
that's
didn't know
cool.
there was such a thing either. Like all of this is new. Like when
Sure.
I went indie, like all of this is such a steep learning curve because all of this was done, in-house at my
hmm
editor or
hmm
my publisher. So always learning.
Well, and we live in a time now where publishing on your own is doable, and it can be good quality, and you're able to avoid
Absolutely.
the big houses. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think like somebody asked me, why did you transition from, you know, small press to indie? And I was like, it's not because I don't love my small press. Like I love them. Like the people that I worked with, my editors, even up to the CEO, I had a good
hmm
relationship with all of them. It's just um, when you indie publish, you can transition a lot faster. So I can put books out a lot faster because I control like the release dates. I can control my covers. I can like if I so like Baker's Dozen has had like 4 or 5 covers. Like for some reason, I can't get a good cover for this because I'm like, what? It's funny, it's action adventure, it's romance. And I'm like, there's just not a cover that conveys all of those things. So I just try out different things every once in a while and just see what works. But because there's really just
Mm.
nothing like it. It kind of falls in between genres. But I just feel like with indie you can pivot a lot faster. I actually just started my own Shopify store so that people can buy direct from me. And that way I can bundle them, which is something that you can't do on retailers. Like I can bundle, different things. Like I can do signed author copies, which I can't do from other retailers, right? It's something I can only do on my site. And I just want to give more to my readers, right? This is all about enhancing the reader experience. I want them to get the best deal. Like if I want to do an ebook bundle, I can do 50% off all of my, ebooks. And that's a really great deal for my readers because they can just mow through those and have that kind of a deal that they can't get anywhere else. So all about transitioning and, your readers are happy.
Yeah. I've talked to all kinds of writers, and one of the things they love, but I know it can also be frustrating. They work hard, they get the book, it's finally out. The readers read it within a day and say, okay, when's the next one coming out? A couple of years. Yes.
That was my daughter. Yes.
Yeah. But now, on your own, you're basically a one book publishing house in that sense. And it's like, okay, 6 months, 5 months, whatever it takes. I don't know. But yeah, you can
absolutely
put it out quicker. Yeah.
I really can. The turnaround time is so much faster. I put out 5 books this year. I'm not sure I could ever make it to 6. Maybe I could, but 5 books was a lot. Like I was still trying to do NaNoWriMo at the end and didn't quite make it out. Like had a little bit of a scandal there anyway. So I was like, well, I'm done. I'm just done anyway. So, I'll probably, I don't know that I'll do as many as 5 books next year. My daughter is getting married. So I have to kind of carve out some time for that. So that's like one less book, but that's okay. I'm super excited for her to get married, but it does cut into one's publishing schedule. She laughed. She's like, Mom.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, it is. It's super. So
looking at to encourage new writers, perhaps, is there some lessons you've learned along the way that you'd share with them and say, if I had known this when I was younger, this could have helped me?
Don't be afraid to fail. I think is probably one of the best across every time you're going to do business. Just don't be afraid to fail. I think a lot of times fearing to fail keeps us from putting out our books. I think it keeps us from submitting. I think it keeps us from, whatever. Just don't fear, just go forward. I think one of the things that I wish I would have done earlier is just published earlier, because I had a couple of books like Baker's Dozen, The Swiss Mishap. Those books were done. I finished writing those in like 2012, but I was like, so I tried to submit them to, the big house publishers. And then I eventually went to small press, but I wish that I had just put them out on Amazon, right after KU kind of came out. And then, because those were good books and I could have picked up a lot more audience, but I think I was afraid to put myself out there. And I think fear keeps us back a lot. So number one, don't be afraid. The second one is hard work trumps talent, or at least is equal to talent. Like when I first started, I was like, oh, I'm not a talented writer. But I was reading one of the books and they said, if you work, if you write, for 10,000 hours or you write 1,000,000 words, you will get published. Like you've just worked that hard. You've learned the craft. You've honed your craft. You've gotten feedback. And to me, I think that is wonderful. That is encouraging news that I can learn to be a good writer, that it's not something you're born with or you're not. And it's a skill that you can learn and it can be taught, right? And you can learn it. And I think those are the things, just don't give up is probably the last thing that I would say. Just don't give up. Like, I think a lot of people give up right before they get successful because it is so hard. A lot of the overnight successes that we see are the manifestation of years and hours of work that finally it just ignited like a little match on the savanna grass, right? It's just going to catch fire and just going to be this big thing. But you don't see the little sparks that you're putting out to make that happen, right? And so, these overnight successes, it's really just a manifestation of all the payoff from all the hard work, the toil, the late nights, the refining, the trying and failing and trying again. And we just don't give up. Like, you will make it. You will make it. Like you just have to keep going long enough that you don't quit.
Good point. It reminded me of, you're probably familiar with Bob Ross, the painter on PBS.
Yes. Yes.
He said something once that really just stuck with me, and it was that, if I can even remember what it said now, it was talent is basically what you said there, is that talent is just hard work applied, something along those lines. And because, I'm sure he heard people all the time say, wow, you're talented. And he said, no, this is just me doing it over and over and over again until it got to be the way I liked it. And yeah, he's one of my heroes, I guess. I love that wisdom. That was good wisdom.
He did. One summer back when YouTube didn't have as many ads on it, we just sat down and watched a bunch of Bob Ross videos because I don't know why. It was just one summer and we were just bored out of our minds. But I read a little bit about him, and he said that when he was in the Air Force up in, I think he was stationed at Elmendorf up there, men yelled, like all the officers would yell. And he was like, you know what? I don't want to yell. And so if you notice, Bob Ross just always spoke with like the gentlest voice, and it was in response to, or as a backlash kind of from this like environment of like all this yelling. And so he was like always speaking with a calm and kind voice. And I was like, there's somebody who said, you know what, I don't have to have this in my life. I can choose to have, peace and harmony instead of the So I admire Bob Ross for that.
Okay, good. I mean, I love it. But that's what it is. It's, probably there's got to be, the way we think with what side of our brains and stuff. But at the end of the day, if you're going to do something over and over again that you're passionate about, that you're interested in, you're going to succeed.
You will. You absolutely will. You will, as long as you don't quit, like just keep going, get feedback, keep practicing, keep learning and growing. Absolutely. You will succeed.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, Amey, thank you so much for coming on today. I feel inspired to go and pick up a pencil or something here and write a story now.
So. Everyone has a story inside them.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, thanks again. Where can folks find you online? Do you have a website?
I do. So it's books.ameyzeigler.com is my website. If you just want to read like my blog, that's just ameyzeigler.com. But you have to spell my name right because I have a weird spelling of my name. I blame my mom for the extra special E. It's wonderful. I love it. She's so sweet. So it's AMEYZEIGLER. Yeah, too many E's, honestly. I'm just like, oh. So, basically, if you spell my name right, you'll find me. I'm all over the place. I'm everywhere.
Great. And I think I noticed you have a newsletter and stuff people can sign up for.
Yeah, absolutely. You can sign up for my newsletter online, on my website. Just anywhere. Or you can just send me, I think, az@ameyzeigler.com is my email. You can just send that to me. And I will get you added on there. And I just mostly share silly stories from my life about my daughter getting engaged, quilting. I also do charity quilts for Blindness Connection, and just all my stupid little things that go on outside of writing is what I talk about in my newsletter. So it's super fun.
All right. Well, again, the book is called The Christmas Mug. It's on sale now. Makes a great present for someone here at Christmas time. So go out and get it.
Thank you so much, Art, for having me. Appreciate you.
You bet. Thanks again for coming on.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Bookshelf Odyssey podcast. You can check out the show notes to find out all the information, links, and books that we referenced in today's episode. If you'd like to help support the show, I'd love for you to share on your social medias, tell your Bookworm friends, and help us get the word out. If you'd like to help out in a financial way, there are links in the show notes where you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com. You can find all episodes at bookshelfodyssey.com. And please follow us on my social medias. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Follow us there for more bookish content. And so until next time, Happy reading, everyone, and take care.